Welcome everyone to My Career Advisor Live, and this is where mycareeradvisor.com becomes your career advisor. Today we're your hosts, Georgia Harris and the wonderful
Holly Shore. Hi, everybody.
Hey everyone. And so today let's talk about webinars. Let's talk a little bit about webinars, those things. And in the past few months, we can see that business professionals have gone from attending just the occasional webinar training to having them in some way become almost the only way that we can connect to society. So if you're participating in webinars right now or participating in webinars at work, I'm pretty sure that this is a really real fact for you. So I want to ask everyone if you're anything like me, because if you're like me, you've been caught red-handed one time or another, but for multitasking while listening to webinars. And if we're being completely honest, listening to webinars is difficult because there's so many distractions. You can find yourself keeping up with email on one side and just keeping it plugged into your ear while you're managing kids or doing something else or dogs in the background. And so if you are having this challenge, we want to let you know you're not alone. You're not alone. And I know this is a real thing for folks, and I just want to find out from you if this is your challenge, because if it is, we want to let you know that these might be your behaviors, but it doesn't mean that webinars don't have any value. Holly, how do you feel about that? Have you ever had this concern?
Yeah, I do. And I have. And I think to your point, like this has become a way of life for us. I mean, this is how you and I connect every day or every week with our teams. And it's very different, and you have to figure out a new way of operating and a new way of connecting and creating a schedule and making sure you know exactly why you want to be on the webinar, make sure you're prepared. And prepared for webinars isn't the same as being prepared for a meeting, right? Prepared for webinars is like attentive listening and ready to walk away with some good information, hopefully from the people that are presenting those webinars.
Absolutely agree. And so I think that this is a really valuable topic. So Holly, what do you think that we should cover today when we're talking about the value of webinars?
I think that we should talk about, how to prepare for a webinar, how to pick a webinar, and what you want to get out of it. And then, set some goals around once you're done with the webinar, what can you do to follow up with that information?
Sounds good. Well, I'll dive in with the first question then.
Okay.
All right, Holly, tell me, what is the number one distraction activity that you have while you're attending a webinar?
Emails. Emails are my number one. Number two would be text messages. So my recommendation for people would definitely be to, make sure that you silence all of your technology. And it's really difficult, right? Because we're a society now of multitasking. You don't want to do that in a webinar because you're dedicating, sometimes 45 minutes to an hour of your time, and you want to get the most out of it. There's a reason why you picked the webinar. So, those would be my big tips is you have to silence all the noise, and you can certainly control the noise of your phone, and you can control the noise of your email. Can't control the noise of the dog, but you can sure control the noise of those two big distractions.
So with that being said, not all webinars require me to show my face on the camera.
Right.
So should I still adhere to that? I mean, does it matter if I'm really paying attention if they can't see me?
Absolutely. I think it's like an accountability piece to yourself, right? You making yourself accessible on the screen is a great way to show people that you're there, you're listening, and it's really a better way for you to commit to yourself that you're going to try to get the most out of those webinars. That also plays into a fact that you probably need to have a schedule for your day, right? I've been on plenty of moments at the beginning of all of this where I was like, I ran out of time to take a shower today. So, you don't want to be caught not being able to be presentable or how you conceive yourself to be presentable for these calls. So, create a schedule for your day, build it in. It's just like if you were going to go to a workshop, you'd probably want to show up putting your best foot forward, because who knows who's delivering that webinar, especially for the audience that we're talking to. Most of those folks are either upskilling, trying to get better employment, or are currently unemployed and looking, and you never know who might be the person on the other end of that screen that you could connect with for employment. So, show up, put your best foot forward.
Sounds great. Now, you yourself have been invited as a presenter for a lot of webinars recently. So when you're presenting, is it ever running through your mind that there's some percentage of listeners that are just going dark on your webinar or just disappear from the call. Like, does that affect in any way how you tailor your presentation style when you are the person training?
Sure. I mean, you're always curious if people, whether you're in person or over a webinar, are people really listening? Are they really getting what I need out of this? And I would think especially in webinars where you're sitting there on muted, you don't get to laugh at a person's jokes. You don't get to applaud. You don't get to, connect with them the same way. So I think as a presenter, you're always trying to make sure that you're coming across in a way that is conveying the message. And then hopefully, I've been on webinars where there's been success in slides or follow-up information just to be something different than just watching the person's face. But yeah, it absolutely comes across. And I hope that when I'm providing content to people that they're actually getting value and wanting to listen.
So knowing that so many of us find ourselves distracted while attending these webinars, what is really the true value of attending webinars? What is it?
So the Harvard Business Review said in a recent article that in certain cases, webinars have advantages over other types of learning, that webinars that don't require time or expensive travel, and participation doesn't generally require an extensive network. So long story short, webinars can connect you to experts in any field, both locally and internationally, for a fraction of the cost of in-person meetings. And I will say from personal experience, I've been able to connect with a lot of people that I would have probably never been able to get in front of in a normal everyday setting. So, it's really interesting how these changes that we're all experiencing have really brought down a wall between different people, and people are just connecting in very different ways. So it's a great opportunity to build a network. I would encourage people, if you are having an opportunity to connect with people, follow up with them on LinkedIn. You're going to know who your speaker's name is. Most likely they're going to have access to a LinkedIn profile. Follow them, connect with them, and even employers. We're even hosting job fairs and things like that. You're seeing people in person. You can connect with them. It's just another way of networking.
I like what you said there. So I think that we should jump right in then and talk about exactly what it means to get the most out of your webinar experience. And so I'm sure that we can narrow down a few ideas on what would be the best way to get the most out of your webinar.
Yeah, we absolutely can. I think first and foremost, the tip that we can give is to make sure you choose your webinars carefully. When you're choosing a webinar, you have to consider the value of the topics being presented and your time commitment to attending. And remember that you're in control of your time, not the dog, but spend it wisely and on webinars that are really geared towards your own goals.
I think that's fair. And I think also that when you finally really decide on a webinar you want to attend, that taking notes is going to be huge during the broadcast. I think that that's a way that we're able to stay engaged. One thing I do know from a number of studies is that they say that 1 hour after most trainings, most people have forgot half the information that was presented. Like, that for me was mind blowing to know that you forget almost half the content.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think another piece too would be, if you want to stay engaged in the webinar, ask questions. Most of the webinars that I've been participating in, someone's manning a chat function or feature, and you can get questions asked. It keeps you connected to that content in a way that hopefully you're not missing that 50% of the information.
And Holly, you mentioned something a little earlier that I want you to touch on again, but you did mention about building your network on webinars. Can you talk a little more about that?
Sure. I think that you can build a network. You see who's presenting, you see the presenting organization. And I would say connecting with those folks, like I mentioned on LinkedIn, to expand your network. And it's a great way you can extend a thank you to the presenter. Really loved your presentation. Here's the things that I learned from it. And you never know where those connections might come from. I think most positions today, especially for people at other higher levels in their career, are getting exposure to employment opportunities through networking. And I have absolutely engaged with people who I've not met in person. And I would say that's going to be the new normal, even more so now than when, pre-COVID.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And you've spent so many years doing recruiting work. So I'm sure that this is something that makes a lot of sense to you about what it means to have value in expanding your professional visibility. So,
Absolutely.
and let's talk a little more about that. I know that we have some webinars that we can recommend that folks can attend that really help to increase their professional visibility. Can you help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a webinar around career assessments, right? So people can really dig into what should I be doing for my career and exploring different options. What a great time now to be doing something like that. We've got some great partnerships with Indeed. And so we're providing Indeed webinars around job searching, resume building, and then, just getting prepared for things like job fairs and new interview techniques, things like that will be coming in webinars.
Oh, I love that. And this is such a critical time for folks to be able to hear that, because at the time of this broadcast, we're looking at a national unemployment rate of about 14.5%. And that's according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And so knowing that Goodwill has all these wonderful webinars, I'm pretty sure that they would love to know how to get a hold of those calendars and the updates on how to attend webinars that'll be useful.
Absolutely. So they can find the events calendar on mycareeradvisor.com. You can also find the events calendar on the goodwillaz.org website under calendar.
I love that. All right. Well, I think this was useful information. I had a great time. I'm hoping that this was helpful for our listeners as well. So let's just do a quick recap on what we actually discussed today. First, we know that you need to choose your webinar carefully. Be sure to choose one that actually meets your needs. Our next tip is for you to retain what you've learned. Take those notes during the broadcast. You will need them later. Also, ask relevant questions of the presenter. They want to hear from you. And lastly, make sure you're building your network. Take the time to expand your network while you are on the webinar, because you don't know if that person has your next opportunity in their hand. All right. I think the last thing I should say, and how could I forget it, register this week for a webinar through mycareeradvisor.com. I'm telling you, there are so many great things that we have to offer, and I hope that you will find value in them once you attend. So, Holly, what is the best way for someone to get in contact with somebody from our career services team?
Sure, they can get in contact. There's a chat feature on the mycareeradvisor.com website, or you can call 602-535-4444 and talk to someone. One of our contact center specialists can help connect them to all of our valuable resources.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. And that wraps up this episode of My Career Advisor Live. If you want to learn more about our career services, job search tools, and training opportunities, please check us out at mycareeradvisor.com. Holly, who do we have lined up for our next show?
Well, on our next show, we will have Ron Mack, who is our Senior Community Awareness Partner with Goodwill of Central and Northern Arizona. And he's going to be here to chat with us about an upcoming virtual job fair.
All right, that's perfect. Well, we want to thank all of you for joining us today. And just remember, we are here to make mycareeradvisor.com your career advisor. Take care.
Bye.